To start this giant snow cone project, I used a planter I already had. It was in the garden. I just cleaned it up with some Dawn dish spray and let it dry. I had my son 3D model a plastic spoon handle. I used translucent PVA filament, and I actually had him do it like double the size of a normal spoon. So it was about 20 to 23 centimeters. I then took cardstock and started folding it. I folded it as small as it would go 3 to 4 times and then cut each one into strips. Because for this, I was going to be gluing it onto the planter to be the lip of the styrofoam cup. So the whole thing was supposed to look like a cup that the snow cone's sitting in. So I did this, I think it took like 4.5 of these strips. It's just normal cardstock that I did this with. And then I ended up hot gluing it on to the edges of the planter. So here I was lining them up and hot gluing it. So the glue did get messy. At least my hot glue gun is probably over a decade old, and it probably is messier than a newer one or some others would be. But I just lined it up on the edges and went ahead and held it down until it sealed itself. And then anywhere it kind of popped up in gaps, I would just use more hot glue, kind of just put it down and make sure it was solid. I think one thing I did that I didn't take a video of was after this all dried, I did like a kind of a whitewash with white acrylic paint that I mixed with a little bit of water. And then I covered the whole thing, the whole planter and the cardstock styrofoam lip. I did that with that acrylic. And then even though the pot was it's like an off-white color, I just wanted it to be a little more flow like with the bright white of the cardstock so that it kind of looks like a cup that this snow cone is sitting in. So to make the straw, I took this dowel, and I think it's a Delton rod. It's probably about 1/2 inch in diameter. So I just rolled another sheet of cardstock around it, and I just held it tightly, and I rolled it up real tight and made sure that it was like wrapped around pretty evenly to make that straw. And actually I secured the edge of it with B7000, let that dry. I kind of held it while it dried. And then I took some acrylic markers and just did a few quick lines. Like I wanted to do red and blue stripes on it because this was like for 4th of July. So I just took these acrylic markers. I probably could have been more exact with the lines, but I just was kind of doing this for fun. So I went ahead and just made stripes roughly evenly around the straw. So I took packing tape and I wrapped this straw after it's drawn with the lines. I just wrapped the whole thing in packing tape and just did small sections of tape and then kind of overlaid it all the way down. And I did mess up a little bit on the end, but that's okay because part of it's going to be embedded in the styrofoam snow cone. So I'll just use that end to push it in. So there's my straw and spoon handle. They came out pretty well. So then I went ahead and glued on the dome. This was a 9.6 inch half dome styrofoam, like half sphere. And I used more hot glue to secure this on top of the planter that had the cardstock glued on it. And then I used some extra hot glue just to make sure it was really sealed. Next, I mixed some water with some blue acrylic paint in a bowl, and I used a sponge applicator to start. My husband was helping me put this on, kind of like a wash, so that it would kind of sink into the nooks and crannies that we made with the Dremel earlier. And it kind of just worked because that's exactly how a snow cone is, and you put the syrup over it. So I did half red and half blue, and these were just acrylic paints I got from Amazon and mixed with a little bit of water. And I actually thought that the drips looked pretty authentic, so I ended up leaving those. But here's the finished product.